Okay.
Oh shit.
This is my first question. Is for all three of you, but I want to start with Nick. Nick, did
Yep.
you and I ever formally meet?
I'm pretty sure we did. You were in depth charge, right?
That was me. Yeah, I because I knew you worked with Wayne.
Yeah, and I lived in Island Park Saloon.
You
So
Yeah.
have your
Okay.
headphones here?
I
yeah,
was
so we
wondering about that.
probably
I'm just like, it's like, oh, okay. Now, my first thing's about Wayne Quigley, Big Q Productions, and Big Q was a huge Mandrake guy.
Yeah.
And my thing was, how did you all meet Wayne, and what was it like to work with him? And Nick, I was of the understanding you were involved with Big Q Productions. Tell us about that.
yeah. So well, you know, the Aurora music scene in that time. I was good friends with the dudes in Severance. Um, lived with them.
It's only when they're talking in there. So.
Shut up, Ron.
No, it's sorry, dude. It's just that the sound when you guys are talking, it's like distorting on my computer. But when Ty is talking, it sounds normal.
Oh, that's weird.
Interesting. But yeah, so I met Wayne through the Severance guys, and you know I've been involved with some other bands, um, and kind of been working, you know, mostly kind of helping drum tech for people and shit like that. And, when Wayne came along and wanted to do this production thing, asked me, you know, what I felt that he needed, and I said it was more like organization. You know, like just knowing, having when you had five bands on the bill, knowing where they're going to put their gear and doing it quickly so that we didn't have 45-minute set changes because nobody knew where they were putting anything. So that was kind of the essence of it. And Wayne and I did a lot. You know, Wayne obviously did the majority of the booking and the direct contact with all the theaters and whatnot. But you know, if he had two shows that night, he had one of the Ogden, one of the Gothic. You know, he'd take the Ogden, I'd take the Gothic, or vice versa. And for years, it was fun. You know, Wayne was huge. He did it from the ground up, and he didn't make a dime. You know, it wasn't about the money. It was about hopefully getting some of these bands that we were hanging out with a little bit more exposure and some notoriety in some cases. Right?
Okay. Ron, you said you the Mandrake started in '91, right?
Yeah, right around there, like 91, 92.
And I did not discover this about the Mandrake until I got this archive going. You're from Greeley, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
live in Greeley.
Now, being from Greeley, doing death metal, being being of a more of extreme, before Wayne from Big Q Productions, was there discrimination against that kind of genre? Was it harder to get gigs? Before Wayne came around?
Well, no, when I actually started Mandrake, it was kind of like a cross of thrash with like a bit of death metal.
Mhm.
Um, we used to have a very good scene. I mean, we still do in northern Colorado, and
Mhm.
so we had like our own venues around here, and we played. It used to get packed even in Greeley. We had like venues where we would pack the place every weekend, dude, in Fort Collins and
Right.
shit like that.
Okay. Well, all right. Now my next my next thing is Ron. I remember reading a Stone Culture interview, magazine interview.
Yeah,
Mandrake, that was a magician when you were growing up. He was called
yeah.
Mandrake. And if that's so, tell me if that was accurate. And why did you have to use the duh?
So, well, starting with the Mandrake thing, yeah. When I was a kid, they used to hire like a magician for like you know birthday parties, and he was for like me sometimes, or my cousin as well. And then yeah, he went by Mr. Mandrake, and this
Mhm.
guy would like come out of a black box and shit with like smoke, and all the kids will be all freaked out, and he's like, "Holy shit, what the fuck?" You know, it was pretty cool, and that always just stuck in the back of my head. And I don't know, I always loved the name, but and then eventually, when I started like listening to music, I recall like on one of my dad's records and shit, and it was like a Deep Purple record, and in the back of it, it had like a little cartoon. He's like flying on a little ship or something, and it said Mandrake, and I was like, oh, and that's just like that magician that we used to have at the birthday parties, and it kind of just stuck even more in my head. Eventually, I started listening to music, and it always stuck in the back of my head, and then I was like, I'm gonna use that name someday, and I did. So the Mandrake deal was like we were always Mandrake locally, and then eventually Crash Bateman Records offer us a record deal, and during this whole time, just going back and forth with emails about when the release was gonna be coming out and stuff. Mark Nawara was like, "Hey, Ron, you know that there is a band in Germany named Mandrake, and they're trying to release a record around the same time." And so I contacted them, and I was like, you guys need to just stop using this shit, because I had all that the name copyrighted in the U.S., but I guess outside of the U.S. it didn't matter, because it was all different places anyway, and so they have their own laws about that, and so it wouldn't cause any problems. Mark Nawara and I talked about it, and he's like, "Why don't you just add something to it?" And I was like, "This really sucks, man," but I ended up just doing that, and it was just the Mandrake, which I didn't like it as much, but oh well.
Right. It was something you did it because you had to, and if I had it my way, I would have let you just use let you use Mandrake in itself. But I guess we all can't always get what we want, right?
Right. Well, he mentioned, I remember this too, and he's like, well, just like Mayhem, they added the Mayhem, and he just put that in my head too, and I was just going, well, I want this shit released here pretty quick, so I just did that.
Okay. This is a big praise, and this is for all three of you to talk about. I thought Mandrake's At the End of Dawn not only is one of my favorite song of yours, but without failure, you guys always opened with it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It was like a first round Mike Tyson, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you kind of song. I'm gonna beat your ass to submission.
Right.
Ron, no band ever did a better job of coming out of the gates saying, we're gonna beat the fuck out of you than Mandrake. Did you open with that song by design? Because I will confess, I don't know if you knew the band Beguile or Bellwhore.
I've heard of them, yeah.
Nick Campbell's my cousin.
Oh.
And right around this time when Addie joined the group, and yes, Addie, we're going to get to you in a minute. The big, he formed Beguile, and he was of age to be coming to shows, and he was Beguile was black metal, which black metal to me, I'm just kind of like, that's a real hit or miss, and it's more on the miss side for me. So I would find like, okay, they're doing that. Oh, there's Mandrake. Let's go see Mandrake. Otherwise does, because you mixed in with the extreme side. But that rolls into my next thing, because I saw Mandrake several times before Addie joined. And Ron, I got to ask you, it's not very often attractive women who can actually play their instruments and do it well play in extreme metal bands. When you had a vacancy at bass, and if I'm assuming after Alex Shalenko left, before Addie joined, how did that all go?
Before Addie joined Mandrake?
Well, it's like, when Addie auditioned for Mandrake, was she what you expected?
Yeah, Addie was pretty good. Actually, uh, so we had the original bass player in this Mandrake, a little bit more death metal. Anyway, what's the guy out of Fort Collins named Lou, and he helped us out for a little while. He just wasn't really what I was looking for, but he's a great musician. Uh, and then Brett Phillips joined us for a little while. He was not originally Mandrake either. He kind of got a little bit lucky when it came down to it because we got signed to the label, and then he got his picture taken. He's on the record, you know what I'm saying, kind of thing like that. And it's like, oh man, just some time for that. Yeah, exactly. Uh, and then it's after we released a record, that Addie came in the picture, kind of thing like that, and we met Addie, and I think then Ryan kind of introduced you to me, Addie.
Yeah, because I was kind of hanging around with the throat coat guys, and
Right.
I told them that you guys needed a bass player, so I
Right.
came up to Kelly's mom's kitchen to audition.
Right. And James, of course, James Cummins too. Yeah, that's right. That's how it was.
Because James Cummings came after me. We brought him in.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And then Addie came to my house to come audition, and then we ended up going to the jam spot. Addie already kind of knew a couple of songs roughly, and everything went well. And I really liked Addie. She had a great attitude and stuff like that, easy going, and she wanted to jam out, and uh, exactly what I was looking for. Instead of just having that. Normally, you have members that it's always like there's problems, drama and shit like that. We got along really well. And it worked out really well, for sure.
Cool. Okay, Addie. What were in terms of playing extreme metal? Were you drawn to that, or what was your motivation?
I'd say I've always been drawn to it. Cannibal Corpse has always been one of my favorite bands. I joined the death metal band at the end of high school, and we would cover a couple of Cannibal Corpse songs, and so that's how I kind of got introduced into the scene and started meeting people. But yeah, the extreme metals have always been, especially death metal.
Okay. Oh, by the way, Dale Strom from Bleeding Faith sends his regards.
Oh, I love Dale.
Dale's in California with me. I didn't know if you knew that.
I did.
So, anyways, the big thing I'm just going about around here. Addie and Nick, I sent you a little bit of backstory on some of the lessons I kind of learned, as a predominant bachelor, prior to your time with the Mandrake. And Ron, I remember, James, James and I had a friendship. We both had a very big fondness for freeing the West Memphis Three. That's what bonded us.
Yeah.
And and he was friends with Keith Spargo and Rod Brown, who were mutual friends with me.
Yeah,
And
I knew all those guys.
Right. And Rod and Keith Spargo, all knew I was a proverbial bachelor king. So when the when the Mandrake had a show at Jaime's or Bottoms Up Tavern, I'm trying to remember, which one it was at that time. And the Mandrake had a show. I went, and that was the first time I ever saw Addie. And I'm just like, what is the Mandrake trying to be like Coal Chamber? Coal Chamber sucks, and Addie's way hotter than Raina ever could be. And that thing. And the thing when I saw Addie is Addie just doesn't look it. She played it. And she wasn't a dude. She was a woman on the stage and looked like one and just played magnificent. And for a change, for the first time in my life, I said, I'm not getting myself in any trouble. I'm going to enjoy the view, enjoy the band, and that's that. So the big thing is just that I was a fan of the Mandrake before Addie joined, but I will confess, after Addie joined the band, going to see the Mandrake, what wasn't tough for me was even less difficult. Now, Ron, did the Mandrake, did your following grow because of Addie? Was it the same? What was it like? What was the feedback?
We always had a good fan base, you know. What I liked about when Addie joined is that she actually helped more, you know, to like get the band going even more, you know, where she would put into work, you know, and I lived in Greeley, you know, and we would meet up and say, you know, she would help out at shows, passing flyers with me at the same time, you know, instead of just me by myself before, or me and Kelly, you know, and Addie was just like, oh, you know, let's do this, you know, and so it helped out a lot more, you know, it definitely helped us grow.
Right. All right. Addie, what's your take on all that?
I was just really excited to do it. I was so excited, you know, and I think we became like a little family unit. It was a little dysfunctional family, you know, here and there, but we were really tight, and I loved, you know, getting to go to the shows and hand out flyers and the comp tickets. If anybody remembers comp tickets, you get a lot more people in those comp tickets.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was honestly the best time of my life. You know, I'm so thankful to have been a part of it when I was.
I think I still have comp tickets.
Hey, with those comp tickets, I can vouch for this with depth charge. We would see homeless people outside on Colfax at the Ogden try to sell them. I remember that well.
You want to warm up, buddy?
Right. Now, Nick, my question for you was this, because I never did what you did. I never pursued an attractive woman in the metal community. I never did it. I kept getting burned by women that were on a stage, behind a bar, or in front of a camera. I'm like, okay, I'm not even doing that. You know, what was it? How did you meet Addie formally? I gotta ask.
All right.
You did something I never did.
Here we go. So, if I remember correctly, Wayne and I did a show with Vehemence at X Saloon. And Thine Eyes Bleed and a few other bands. And the Mandrake was on it. And Liquid Courage always helps. Always helps. But I saw Addie, and I think went out and spoke to Joy or something. And I found out she was a teacher. And so every time I saw her that night, at the top of my lungs, I was going, I got a bad, so bad. I'm not a teacher. And her boyfriend was there at the time. She's like, you gotta stop doing that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. What was his name? Dave.
I don't care about that guy. I ended up telling Wayne that night that I was going to marry that chick someday.
Right. Simple things, because history's one of the other things about this archive that I've been doing is that families and couples bear, people, families emerge from this thing, and I will openly admit when I opened up, the archive earlier this year, to some people that I may not have known so well, that was open. But when Ron, Nick, you and Addie, kind of threw your hat in the ring, I honestly somebody like, oh my God, the most pleasant surprise so far, and because I was a huge Mandrake fan, and Dale and I were talking about Addie, and Dale didn't say this per se, but I feel like an idiot for at the very, very least, not going up to Addie and saying, "Hi, Addie, I'm tied with depth charge. I'm a big fan. God bless you." I feel like kind of an ass, but at the time, I'm just like, I'm not getting myself in any trouble. I'm just not, and I enjoyed myself and all that jazz. And, my interactions with Addie and Nick, I feel like it's like, why didn't I at least introduce myself? I feel like a jackass that way.
Well, I think too, like, even if I didn't have a boyfriend, even if I was single, I was usually flanked by 4 other dudes, and that's a little intimidating to approach a girl like that anyway, because like I said, we were always together. You don't know what's going on. It's intimidating.
Right. By the way, I would say this, Addie, if you had told me that you were that you were not you weren't married or anything, I'd be like, you're fucking lying. You're lying. You're totally lying. It's like Marilyn Taylor from SFA. It's like her and I always talked, amongst the group, and her and I, we had a podcast a while back, and I would have said, if you told me you were single, Marilyn, I'd be looking for several cameras, seeing if I was on Jackass or on Punk'd. You'd be like, no fucking way, man. So that leads to my big question to you, Addie. I wanted to ask this for you for the archive. What was it like being a woman in an extreme metal setting? And tell me, more than just Nick, tell me there were some overtures for your attention.
It was different. I feel like, especially in the extreme metal circuit, like, guys are a little bit different than like in the more mainstream metal circuit. I loved it, and I felt like I had a lot more girls coming to talk to me than I did guys, which was fine. But they were always like, "It's so cool," I want to learn to play. So I feel like I was able to inspire women, to actually go with more extreme genres. Didn't come without some guys being jerks,
Sure.
And the same thing, they hit on you, you turn them down, and then they're like, well, fuck you, I'm never talking to you again, but I've always been, one of the dudes that grew up with guys. I'm really comfortable with guys, so I kind of just found my niche and made a lot of friends, and people who didn't generally tend to overstep that friendship boundary, unless I made it clear that they could.
Sure. Yeah, because one of the things I just thought in the back of my head, I'm just like, how did Nick do it? How did he just do this without losing his fucking mind?
Lots of whiskey.
Lots
Serious, my friend. That's all it took.
And patience, because it took months before we even, after that night, it was probably 7 or 8 months later before we actually connected. So he waited a while.
Right. Just kind of like,
I didn't check my MySpace updates and pages back then.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate the response in that respect. One of the things, and I had a podcast with Maris the Great back in February, and you guys allegedly got killed by Maris, but the pictures never got released. What was your experience with him?
It was a lot of fun. I remember we went, Addie, what was that guy's name that it was friends with Maris?
It was Pat from Switchpin, I believe.
That's right. Yeah. So we met up there, and Maris was pretty nice. He was pretty cool. I remember we ended up getting like pizza, and we were drinking beer there the whole time and stuff. You know, he was a pretty friendly guy. Sometimes a little friendlier than you want him to be. You know, because he wanted to see my dick and shit. And I was just going, no, that's not gonna happen, dude. But anyway, yeah, I really don't know what happened with that because he, you know, he started killing Charlie, right? And we didn't finish all of it, something like that, if I recall that. And it was looking pretty cool, but the job ended up just being not finished. You know, whatever happened, I really don't recall. Do you, Addie?
I don't remember why we didn't finish, but I remember we kind of had to cut it short because it was getting late.
Yeah, we did. And he was crazy. It was pretty cool because at the time I remember we were killing Charlie on outside on the street. And the way he would do some of the things, he would use like, well, he couldn't do that today. He would use hamburger. You know, hamburger is way too expensive nowadays. He would put hamburger with like the fake blood and stuff. And I mean, he had it all over his head and like he got ran over by a car and stuff. This shit looked real. And he was like, holy crap. Remember, Addie, that we had a car that drove by and they were like, whoa, you guys need me to call 911 or something? You know, they were like all freaked out about it. No, this is just, it's fake, going about your business, you know, kind of thing like that. And we definitely did have a great time that day, but I don't know what happened, and we never did finish that.
I just remember we were so messy, like by the time, because there was all that syrup and the ground beef.
Yeah.
And it was stunk, so we just got hosed off in the front yard. Someone brought a hose out to kind of help us clean it up. And then Maris, who was like out of character, or not in character all day, just himself. And then the pizza guy showed up, and then Maris turned on into zombie mode. And I will never forget that pizza guy's face as Maris went to go collect the pizza. You know, and we're all bloody and messy. And
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nick, are you familiar with the band Filth Industry?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me put it to you like this. The reason I bring up Maris is that I took Maris to a show at the Oriental Theater, and not too long before that, I don't know if you remember, but Filth Industry and Depth Charge shared a stage over at the Gothic Theater. It was a Big Q show. Mm-hmm. And Filth Industry had a multi-instrumentalist named Jen. Do you remember her, Nick?
Vaguely, yes.
All right. Jen, to me, she got my blood pumping so heavy, I did not sleep that night seeing her play. And I told Maris that to the show, and Maris said, hey, Ty, I saw her naked. I about pulled over the car and said, you fucking asshole. Because, you know, seeing Addie play was very PG-13. It's like, this is nice. Jen from Filth Industry was rated XXX.
Yeah.
That was,
Now I remember. It's
right.
been so long.
And,
yeah.
Well, Wayne Quigley, his big job is to get Ron Farrell for the May 31st podcast. That's his big job. You know, and try to get photos of her, but you know, that's one of my biggest memories of Maris. I told her that I saw her naked. I'm like, fuck you, Maris. Fuck you with a big rubber dick. So, you know. Anyways, two things I ask everybody. If we remember in the 90s when the internet came out, you know, the internet came out, we're like, okay, this is kind of cool, we think. And, you know, what did you guys think of the internet and what it did for music? You know, did the Mandrake think, okay, this is a good tool? What did you guys think?
I think it was definitely a good tool. Like, some crazy stuff actually happened with Mandrake before even Addie joined, and she probably remembers the story, but because of the internet, we put the music back then on MP3, and my wife was always helping us a lot with that stuff, and she got contacted by this guy named Chris Carlucci, and him and his partner, they claimed that they bought part of Warner Brothers Records. And they really liked what I was doing at the time, which was already like extreme stuff, but a little bit different. They set up a meeting, to be honest, here at Mile High for Ozfest, and I went there to meet up with them. And there's like people there, what? You're meeting a record label here and shit? And I was like, yeah, this is crazy. And we got there, and I remember he showed up with like Marilyn Manson. We met him in the back, and they took us backstage, and we had dinner and stuff, and gave us a record contract. And it was crazy. About a month later, some of the members in Mandrake, that's before the Burning Horizon and all this stuff, and that's where I just said, damn, this sucks. I'm going to have to now do something different. So all those members, after they offered that contract, they all agreed, yeah, let's do this. And within a month, they freaked out about it because some of them were like having kids and shit, and they quit. And we were supposed to be flying like the following month to California to like their Warner Brothers studios to start recording a record. Mm-hmm. It never happened.
Right.
So the internet was like definitely helping the music scene, you know, back then. It was just all new, you know, so I guess, you know, a lot easier to find.
Here was a tipping point for me about the internet, and I get all three of you. I thought Metallica, looking back, had a right to sue Napster the way they did, but their biggest mistake was they stood alone. They should have waited for a lot, you know, for other people to rally behind them and go as a group. Do you guys agree or disagree with that?
I think they would have had more of a case if they had more people. You know?
Yeah, they have more people behind. Yeah, I agree.
Right. I think it also could have changed the way that streaming would be now in terms of, you know, profitability. You know, they could have shined that penny up and turned it into dollars, but kind of left a lot on the table, I think.
Okay. Here's another question I have for you guys. Considering how technology has been coming around, and one of the reasons for this archive is that I think we were the last generation of live music before cell phones and social media changed our culture for better or for worse. I don't knock this because without those things, I could not do this book. I could not do this book the way things were, when during the era I'm covering. So I can't knock that. But in your eyes, what will live music look like in the year 2100, and what role will AI have in it?
I mean, I heard something from someone the other day that the best thing with AI is we can't fight against it. We have to embrace it and learn how to use it. So I think that's going to actually help maybe some bands become a little more independent without the labels. You're seeing a lot more bands go the independent route and be able to become successful without it. And I think AI can help that.
Okay.
In the end, the especially with this genre of music, in the end, it's still all going to be about live performances because we crave as fans to go see our bands live, right? Whereas I'm sure there are some people that want to spend ridiculous money to go see Taylor Swift or something like that, but they aren't as avid of concert goers as this genre of music is. I think live music is always going to be key. What it does, for recording and writing purposes, that's going to be a pretty gray area there. There's going to be a lot of things said, but I think it's kind of like with everything. After you're exposed to it enough, you're going to embrace it, and it's going to become norm, and it's not going to be so taboo to use AI.
Okay. Ron, what do you got to say about it?
No, I don't know. AI scares me. You know, it's getting pretty crazy. Uh, some of the guys just show me even friends like, oh look, I just came up with a song. Check this out, and I'm just going, what? You got to be kidding me! What the hell is going on here? And it sounds all real and shit. That kind of takes away from us musicians, when it comes down to writing and being original. I work very hard for what I do, and I have worked for many years on my guitar playing and things like that. Just to have just technology just destroy that and take over that. It's a little bit annoying, but
Right.
yeah, that's what I got to say about it.
Okay. Ron, I'm gonna finish. We're gonna finish. We're gonna finish with you starting it. Who do you want to plug and attribute, for the longevity, you know, of your journey? Who's been factors in it? Who do you want to shout out to?
Me myself,
Yeah.
like what? Like locally, you mean, or
Yeah,
anybody,
locally.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. Anybody locally. Anybody who made a difference to you.
Well, to be honest, my wife is like she's always been there helping me from the very beginning, dude, and that was always super awesome. Like, I mean, she's helped me with stuff like that. Like I was just saying earlier, I mean, my wife is always like, oh, I'll sell your merch. I do all this stuff, and that's definitely her. My family's always helped me out, backed me up, with all my music, with my career. Locally, like as music, like bands,
Mhm.
all friends, like all the boys in Cheyenne, Than and Keith and Eric, I love all those guys, when they were Dead Speak, and they're only like different. I don't know if Keith is anymore, but Than has a side project, great people. Um, Keith Spargo as well, he was always a great guy to work with. We did cool shows together as well. Um, yeah. Anybody else that you remember, Addie? I'm sure. Oh, Throw Cold, Cerberus, Ivan, all those guys,
Mhm.
Dave Otero, Nick, Jackson, they were
Yeah.
all great
Nick
people that
Jackson
we
was one of
worked
my
with.
closer friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just actually I went to Denver to see Leonard's band from Symbolic Carnage because back in the day he invited me to be on Lucid Interval, and I do a little bit of work with Cephalic on that. But anyway, his new band with Joe and stuff, and I went to the show and support Torn from Existence just to see them perform and stuff, and we all saw each other there, and um, I have not seen Nick Jackson in a long time, and he was there with his wife. And I
Hmm.
was like, "Whoa, dude, what happened?"
Sure.
He's not really playing music anymore, but it was great seeing Nick.
Right. Yeah. Um, One of the things that, Nick, I'll lean towards you here. I was really, really loyal to Wayne, and anybody who couldn't work with Wayne or any band that, there was one band who I will not name. They gave Wayne unwarranted bullshit, and when they tried to, book at a venue where I was working, I'm like, you will not play here until Wayne tells me he's accepted your apology. Can you agree with me? Anybody who couldn't work with Wayne is a complete fucking moron.
Oh yeah, he he was like the nicest dude, just trying to help the scene, And
Right.
it's like, who the hell? I never understood that either. I did see a couple of bands back in the day also doing the same thing, and I was just going, "Fuck you,
Right.
be
It,
lame."
right. Be, because my thing is just that he really he catered towards the more extreme side of things. And I'm wondering, but like, okay, if not for him, would certain bands, and I'm just going to throw this out there, and I'm not dissing them. There was a band called One Per Coffin. Remember that band?
I remember the
Without
name.
Wayne, would bands like One Per Coffin even get a chance to play the Ogden?
Oh no. Oh, well, I mean, no, they wouldn't. I mean, and Wayne wasn't just. I mean, we worked with that. What was the Juggalo kids? The Axe Murder Boys, right? I mean, we did have some diverse bands and diverse shows. Wayne just had the right. Was at the right time and made the right connections to where they were really helping the venue stay alive too. It was basically, if they had open dates, they could give Wayne a show. He could put enough people there to justify security and bartenders getting paid. And because of that, a lot of these bands that probably would have never gotten out of the bar got to play on a bigger stage, right? Very few bands ever get to play the Ogden anymore. I don't remember the last time I went to the Ogden because they don't have shows there very much. It's not the type that I want to go to. But even the Gothic Theater and things like that, there was no way that most of those bands were ever going to get an opportunity to play that unless they worked hard and made the right connection. And Wayne was the connection.
Right. Okay. All right, guys. Anyways, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Ron, I appreciate your time, my friend.